Hello, welcome to this webinar where we'll be talking about how to make that transition from the classroom to a position as either an instructional designer or a corporate trainer. And we'll dive into what each of those roles actually consists of. But I'd like to first of all make sure that I understand, are you accessing this live right now, or are you viewing this as a recording? So let's begin there and see what you're doing in terms of how you're reaching this information. Are you live or are you looking at this from a recording? So first of all, I hope everybody is safe and surviving the various storms that we have been experiencing, regardless of where you are in the country. Some of us have had to deal with snow. I'm currently talking to you from New England, where we had just over a foot of snow, and we're expecting somewhere around 2 to perhaps 4 inches of rain to fall in the next 48 hours or so. The rest of you perhaps have been able to avoid the snow, but you are experiencing something resembling rain, high winds, etc. So hopefully, wherever you may be, you're safe, warm, and not experiencing any undue stresses from the weather. So if you're like me, you probably have that pit in your stomach as you hear that tick, tick, tick of 60 minutes every Sunday evening, because you know that means the weekend is over and now you've got to get ready for another week in the classroom. And that's clearly something that's driving you to a position of being less than happy, less than satisfied. But if you'd like to be able to stop hating hearing that tick, 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 and perhaps embrace the end of the weekend because you're so excited to get back to work, you are in the right place. And I hope you are ready to feel that enthusiasm, that excitement that comes from working in a particular career that is rewarding, that does allow you to use the experience, expertise, education, skills that you have worked so hard to hone at the level that you now have them. And unfortunately, in many instances, are not being allowed to fully leverage them in your current job. So you're looking for how you can improve upon that scenario. So we'll discuss why you're here. I'll give you a quick introduction about myself, and then I'll reassure you you have come to the right place. I will help you get clarity around this migration, this transition from being a classroom teacher to working as either an instructional designer or as a corporate trainer, which have a lot of overlap. Sometimes they're used interchangeably, but there really are certain differences, nuances perhaps, between those two jobs. So we'll discuss what each of those are, and then we'll see if it makes sense based on what I have presented to you, if it makes sense for you to pursue either of those two tracks as a future career transition. So, what I hope to be able to provide you is give you that pathway for better understanding of what it would require for you to succeed as either the corporate trainer or instructional designer, while also preventing you from veering off that path and having what would be a very unfortunate accident because you perhaps didn't have full understanding of what the role contained. You didn't have a realistic picture of what a day in the life would consist of. So we'll give you the unvarnished truth and let you make a determination if that fits your vision of a work environment that you could see yourself succeeding in. So let's first discuss whether or not you are a pre-K teacher, perhaps you're an elementary school teacher, maybe a junior high school, intermediate school, middle school teacher of either a subject or perhaps what they call specials. Perhaps you're a high school administrator, maybe even a higher education instructor. If you fit that profile, this is very much the right place for you. However, if you are fed up with the process of teaching, learning, education, and you want to get out of that entirely, this is not the right career track for you. If you are interested in just being on the beach or opening the mail and collecting monies that magically appear, this is not the occupation that you should be pursuing. If you're somebody who is a little tentative, a little afraid to stretch, to try something new related to what you do, but a little new from what you are comfortable and familiar with, this also might not quite be the career for you, because while it does use many of the same skill sets that you already have developed, there will be certain things that are different about being a corporate trainer or an instructional designer. So I'm going to make the assumption, since you have joined us, since you are still with us now, you perhaps are feeling a feeling of overwhelm. You likely have the feeling of being underappreciated for all that you do. That may come from administrators, from parents, from students, from peers, from the community at large, the school boards, etc. You hopefully want to just find that passion that once fueled your interest in learning, education, teaching, and just do it perhaps in a very different environment than the one that you have traditionally worked in. I also imagine you don't want to reduce your income. If anything, you'd like to increase your income. And I know for many people that becomes a hesitancy. They've put in so many years, they've gone through a series of steps of salary increase, and now they don't want to roll backwards. They have family, they have perhaps children that they've got to put through college. They may be the sole source of income. So, certainly, rolling back income would not be something that would be desirable really for anyone. And certainly, you're likely not looking to do that yourselves. At the same time, you have a tremendous treasure trove of skills, and it would really be to your advantage to be able to apply those very same skills in a career that appreciates them, can harness and leverage them. And you perhaps have heard about this thing called instructional design, or maybe you have friends or neighbors who have told you you ought to go into corporate training. Well, we'll discuss those and see if, in fact, they are a fit for you. So, further, I would make the assumption that you're probably somewhat uncertain about what to prioritize in this potential transition, what you wish to focus on. uh, what do I do initially? What are the secondary steps I need to take? Perhaps what are the things that I should avoid doing? These are all things that we can certainly discuss together, and certainly I can provide you with my experience in how not only I have done it, but many others that I have worked with have been able to accomplish that. So, you maybe are also thinking, I need more information on what does a day in the life of a corporate trainer, of an instructional designer look like. And while you will be changing your career potentially, is this a career that will allow you to explore your interests away from work, whether that means spending more time with family, friends, various institutions, social or otherwise, that you are a part of or you'd like to be a part of? And does it afford you the chance to also devote your energies to leisure activities? These are all things that we can discuss together. So, Many of the people that I speak to that are considering this kind of a transition are really on the fence. They're uncertain. I loved teaching. I love parts of it even to this very day. It's frankly how I have always viewed myself. I am a teacher. That's my identity. And now you might be feeling somewhat tentative about could I, should I, would I do as well somewhere else? So I understand those doubts. I have spoken with and helped many people through that transition to recognize that they are far more than just a teacher, as if it's just, as if it's limiting. There is so much you have to offer, so much you can provide, and it would really be a shame to shut out those opportunities without giving them a very fair look and then making an informed choice or decision. And I know it's very possible that you might be fearing nobody would look at me, nobody would hire me. I'm a fraud. I'm a teacher. I'm not a corporate person. I could never do this as a freelancer. I'm just not cut of that cloth. And perhaps you're right, but I can also tell you perhaps you're wrong. It is something that many teachers are able to do and able to do successfully, profitably, productively. So I wouldn't shut that out as an option too quickly unless you are absolutely certain it's not the right career for you. And then I understand some people fear trying something and not succeeding. So you begin to think of yourself as that horrible F word, a failure. Please don't do that. You have so much to offer. Your background is so interesting, compelling, and prepares you so well, regardless of what you teach, how long you've been teaching. That very skill set is one that is urgently needed in so many different organizations, for profit, not for profit, outside of the traditional classical school setting. So please think long and hard before you determine that your only place career wise is inside of a school. So I'd like you to close your eyes perhaps and think to yourself, what if you could feel certain, feel assured, feel confident that you could use all that you have in your preparation to be a teacher, in your experience as a teacher? If you were able to leverage and harness all of that and do so in another job, if you were appreciated, respected, if you were desired by others because of the contribution you provide, wouldn't that be fabulous? That you didn't have to just accept whatever someone who perhaps doesn't really understand what happens in your job, but yet is making decisions about how you should do it. Wouldn't it be great if you were able to be fully recognized and appreciated? And as I mentioned, if you could not only keep your current salary, but in many instances increase it, I think you would probably want that scenario. And hopefully, by making this conversion, you'll also be able to reignite all that fuels your self-interest in providing learning, education, improvement, performance gains, etc. All those things. And at the same time, you wouldn't have to be worrying as you do now about the overload of work that so often teachers have to deal with, having to bring work home with them, having to forego their prep periods, having to take on additional responsibility because your school is short staffed. We all live in the real world. There will be times in any job where you might have to flex, but it's become almost expected and a constant in the equation for far too many teachers. In many other jobs, it's the exception, not the rule. So, what I hope to be able to provide to you is a clearer picture of what it would really take for you to be able to decide if corporate training or instructional design is a pathway you'd like to be able to excel at, and give you a clearer understanding of just what it is, what it takes to be a success as a corporate trainer, as an instructional designer, and then see just how much hand holding you would prefer in making that transition or that migration, and whether you prefer mentorship at a very roll up the sleeves, elbow to elbow kind of level, or if you're more comfortable doing things somewhat independently with just an occasional check in to see if you're still on the track, on the path, and to answer any questions that may have arisen as you continue that transition. So you may be wondering, okay, who is this guy and why should I be listening to him? So I'm going to provide you some background so you know who's talking to you. I want to provide you with those things that you require so that you're comfortable and confident that you can succeed. I want to provide you with the pathway so that it is as easy for you to make this journey as possible. But good corporate training, good instructional design, good educational efforts of any kind, as you're very well familiar with, don't include a whole lot of puffery or fluff. You want the brass tacks, you want the good stuff, and not necessarily a whole lot of self impressed fodder that doesn't really generate any further progression on your side. Not going to provide that to you. So, I have a laundry list of things that I have accomplished and done. I have been a teacher myself in Brooklyn. I have taught at the graduate school level. I have worked in corporate America for over 3 decades in various industries. So I have a fairly good grounding in, regardless of where one would want to ply their craft or their trade as a trainer, instructional designer, what different industries seek. So I can provide that kind of context. I've been in my own business helping both corporations under my Zon Consulting banner, as well as individuals looking to become instructional designers or corporate trainers. So I can do both the group, the individual, corporate, etc. I can help you in any of those regards. I've been an author of books. I've been a columnist. I've been interviewed on numerous radio shows. I am part of what's called industry groups, where we bring people with similar wants, needs, experiences together, and they share what some of their successes are, what some of their opportunities are. And I facilitate those groups so that there is that cross pollination so that people don't feel totally alone. And while it didn't make this list, I also have a graduate degree in instructional design. So it's not something that I just fell into, but this has always been a career path that I have wanted to pursue and I want to share with you so that you get the essentials of what it is to be a corporate trainer or an instructional designer, or frankly, both, because some jobs will require that you straddle both skill sets. It's a hybrid position. Other things about me that might be of interest. I still hope, although it's been many, many years where I could ever claim to have a realistic chance at this, but I still hope I might be able to be a professional basketball player for the New York Knicks. I went to my undergraduate school in Buffalo, New York, and therefore consider myself somewhat of an aficionado on where the best buffalo wings are, not only in the city of Buffalo, but very often in my travels, I can also tell you where the good places are in various other cities. I have one wife. Between the two of us, we have four children. I like to joke, one of each. And we also share a dog that perhaps is the best behaved out of all the offspring. And my job has required that I fly not only domestically but internationally as well. So I have covered five different continents, mostly for business, but I also have gone back to some of them for pleasure in different countries that I wanted to spend some additional time in. So hopefully that gives you a sense for who I am and what I'm about. So just want to make sure that you understand that I have worked with people and have seen them succeed. One woman in particular was, by her own admission, floundering, and she was looking for someone to help her in making this transition. So she looked for my perspective, which I offered to her, and she has absolutely now succeeded working as an internal human resources consultant developing training for frontline employees in the airline industry. So she's been able to make this transition quite nicely. So you could put, if you're interested, you could put into the chat function your name, if you're interested in sharing where you currently teach, or perhaps if you have moved away from teaching now, where you used to teach, and then what interests you about instructional design or corporate training. Feel free to share that, and I can review that after the webinar itself and respond back to you. So if you're like me, you come to these webinars and you think to yourself, I have certain hesitancies. I hope I get questions answered. And you may fear you don't have what it takes to succeed. Let me give you the first of what will be three secrets. You not only have what is required to succeed, but it is very much desired by your employer. It is something that will help move the needle for them, never mind just giving you another opportunity. So you do have what it takes, and I'm prepared to share with you just what that is. So if we were to define teacher, first thing that comes up if you go to the dictionary, one who teaches. And let's face it, that doesn't really get it done. That's not much help in getting a definition clarified in our minds. But I put some qualities that I believe a good teacher should have. You very likely have these and plenty more. And you can see I listed eight, but that wasn't nearly going to cover the job. You also have these characteristics. So, in addition to being able to communicate, in addition to understanding learners and being empathetic towards them, in addition to being a subject matter expert and having content knowledge, and you also have an appreciation for the different modalities and styles that people use to internalize, access information, how they learn. You also have all these other series of skill sets. And again, this is far from exhaustive. So let's then look at what a trainer and instructional designer skill set would look like. For a trainer, you would have the following kinds of skills. You're a facilitator. You ordinarily are someone who is in the classroom, hands on, in front of people, demonstrating, modeling, etc. So you have a certain role to be the administrator on site for the particular intervention of one kind or another. And this is, again, really top line. Instructional designers are the developer of the content. So they're the ones who would create the curricula, the strategies employed, the process by which this training, execution, or intervention is to use, etc. They very often have to be skilled in what's called multimodality. It might mean creation of self-paced materials, workbooks, job aids, perhaps it's e-learning, etc. So they're the ones who will be creating the training content, and they also may create a facilitator's guide, or they may be also providing different on the job kinds of learning materials that can be accessed very quickly without taking someone off of the job in order to attend a particular training or to complete a particular training module that's been developed. They very often are going to be asked to incorporate various kinds of performance-based activities or exercises that help to reinforce the learning, help to demonstrate the importance of the learning, etc. Both jobs do have a certain amount of focus on retention and reinforcement of content to ensure that the behaviors mirror the learning that was supposed to take place. So let's continue on though. They have to be both have to be able to communicate with diverse audiences, people of different experience sets, different educational levels, sometimes different language capabilities, and on and on. Again, these are things that are already familiar to you on this webinar. Clearly, they have to be able to solve problems in the moment. They have to be able to manage deadlines, projects, ensure that materials are properly created, available to the learner on the as needed basis. Uh, as mentioned, they have to have certain capabilities and skill sets in the administration of whatever is going to be included in the training. Creativity is something they have to always be able to lean on, because what worked yesterday may not work today. In order to reach certain learners, they may have to change how they do what they do, which requires an awful lot of skill in listening. And kind of related to that is the ability to ask the right questions so that you do get the information you need to properly train or to properly design and develop the instruction. And they have to be aware in many instances of the implications of the content being trained, where the training is to take place as it impacts health, safety, security, environmental issues, because corporate America will very often be very focused on that. And given the particular job site location and the industry, sometimes that has higher importance than in other instances. So I include it because it is something that you likely will come across in this transition if it's not something that you're already uh, very skilled at in your classroom setting. Then I added a whole host of other things that you could read as well as I could read it to you. But we're not done. We have plenty more to go. You have to have knowledge of various resources and tools, and I listed a couple of them. Of course, there are plenty more. You may have to also be responsible for travel planning, not just your own, but the planning of learners to a facilitated event. Very often that's part of the role. EQ, being able to assess and respond to the learner and to social situations and to group behaviors, all those things. Clearly, time management is important, and you have to be self motivated, tireless. And I'm sure as I go through this list, you're thinking to yourself, got it, done it, mastered that, etc. Decision making, working under pressure. Again, all these things you're already doing. I hope you're seeing the very skills you have do translate very nicely to the skills that you'll be asked to provide as either a corporate trainer or an instructional designer. So, probably, I could probably even say definitely, you have grown weary of others telling you how to do your job when they are nowhere near as expert or as experienced as you are. But you're told that's how it is to be done. That's the regulation, that's the rule, that's the law, that's some authority who has determined that's how this job is to be performed. Well, it isn't quite the same in all instances when you work as a corporate trainer or instructional designer. Now, I want to give you a realistic view here. That doesn't mean you get to go rogue or you get to be a maverick and do your own thing and the consequences don't matter. Clearly, they do. But because of your role as a corporate trainer or as an instructional designer, you are the expert and recognized as the expert. So, yes, you'll have to coordinate and collaborate with others. Yes, there will be times when a senior executive will want things done a particular way, but you have a lot more leeway and leverage to explain why it's a good idea, why that approach will be successful, or the reverse, why there may be a better way to accomplish that outcome, that performance, that objective. So it's not exactly like it may be currently in your school where you're essentially told shut up and do it. But as I mentioned, there are certain cautions. You'll be presented with all kinds of people who have so called good ideas, where they think they know. And because they don't always have the so called boots on the ground, you may have to help educate them as well into why certain ideas are better than others. So one way that you'll be able to do that is to use what's known in instructional design and training as KSAs. Stands for knowledge, skills, and abilities. If the training doesn't impact required knowledge in order for someone to do their job, if it doesn't leverage the skill set that somebody needs to perform at a higher level, then it's something that you have to rethink. Is this good training? Is this the right approach? If it doesn't change abilities to do something faster, more profitably, with less errors, etc., if it doesn't meet some business need, then it's probably not going to be good training. And you'll have the full authority of your skill set to be able to say that may not be what is ordered here, what's best for us to pursue. Now, here's a little bit of a controversy. Some trainers, some senior managers, executives would include attitude as another A, KSAA. And there's some pushback. Yes, we would love to have employees have good attitudes about their job, about the company, about their role, etc. Certainly that's a positive, but is that really the role of a trainer to change somebody's attitude? Or are we really focused on behavior and performance? And if they have a bad attitude, what's it any of our business as long as they do the job? That's the key. As long as they are succeeding in the job. Now, we could have this discussion and you can have a point of view, and someone else may have a different point of view. I just raise the issue with you that you're always safe talking knowledge, skills, abilities. In some instances, you may choose or you may work for an organization that wishes to also include attitude, and you'll make your decision as to whether that's even reachable through training, through learning transfer, etc. So keep in mind that business is not interested ordinarily. I won't make it an absolute, but ordinarily they're not interested in building good citizens, in building people who are worldly, knowledgeable. They only want people that can do the job or are prepared for the next job up the career ladder that you'll be helping them move to or transition to in your role as trainer or instructional designer. So it has to meet some business need and typically short term, immediate over long term, which is not to say they don't think strategically or don't look long term, but more times than not, it's filling a gap that's been identified for the next quarter, maybe as far as the next year, but it's usually fairly short term to get something accomplished, something achieved. In terms of dollars, time, effectiveness, you could add safety, you could add efficiency, etc. Those things. All right, I told you there'd be three secrets. Here's your third secret. The transition to this would be easier with a guide. Yes, you can do it on your own, but having somebody walk you through the steps, providing you with feedback, will always make it that much easier. Some people can do this at a sprint. Some people might need to do it at a crawl, but it's always easier if you have someone who can provide you with feedback and somebody who can also hold you accountable for taking the right steps, avoiding the wrong steps in making this transition. So if you're looking to get more interest around what exactly does the trainer or the instructional designer do, they tend to work in helping build managerial skills. Some of those are what's sometimes referred to as the soft skills. Do you know how to uh, reduce conflict? Do you know how to listen and provide feedback? Do you know how to form and lead a team? Those kinds of managerial skills, as well as some of the very fundamentals. Do you know how to give a performance review or performance appraisal? Something very tactical like that. Very often, there's a need for people to refine the sales skills of an organization, how to present, how to handle an objection, how to deliver a presentation in a way that's compelling, those kinds of things. Product training is often something that's in high demand. Can you provide the features and benefits of a product and making training in a way that helps the learner to internalize that and be able to then repeat it and recognize when they should highlight certain features and benefits over others based on the process of how it's being sold or how it's being marketed. Safety training, if you're working in any kind of an industrial setting where they're working with heights, chemicals, environmental conditions. Very often, safety training is something that a trainer or an instructional designer or both will have to be familiar with and provide their expertise towards. The use of technology, everything from how do I use PowerPoint or Excel to far more complex softwares and platforms. Also, great need for training in that regard. Uh, Human resource kinds of issues. Very often, human resources and the next one, legal, are very often tied together so that you're talking about things like harassment or you're talking about things like compliance with various regulations. Those very often will be coupled or brought together. So you could see a vast number of places where you can use your current skills in developing and designing learning opportunities, in presenting and facilitating complex information to an audience, to a set of learners who need to be able to apply that learning in the real world. So, again, things that you're already very familiar with, maybe it's a little bit of a twist to the way you currently view your role, but it is very closely related. So, what are some of the things you'll need to become familiar with? Again, many of these are probably things you're already using to one extent or another. Most organizations at this point have what's called an LMS or a learning management system. That's very similar to what many schools use. It might be Moodle, Blackboard, Schoology, those kinds of platforms where learning is hosted. You upload a course, it might be a video, it might be a document, it might be some other collateral that the learner is supposed to complete. Then they either respond again online or perhaps in the class to an assignment that's been presented to them. Very similarly, corporations, companies use something very related to that. It's usually not one of those. They have other uh, company for profit or not for profit uh, learning management systems, but the concepts remain exactly the same. Authoring languages, that's what you create the online or e-learning through. Common ones are Articulate, Captivate, Camtasia. There are others as well, but those tend to be three of the more popular ones. So if you're not already familiar with them, there are YouTube videos, there are courses one could take that in reasonably short order get you up to speed. Matter of a couple of months at most, and you can be up to speed on how to use those various softwares to create e-learning. Many teachers are already using Canva. That's another tool that very often gets used to enliven screen design and the creation of print materials, etc. Very commonly, the Microsoft suite that we're all very familiar with are things that a instructional designer, a trainer would be asked to become conversant in, and the use of the Adobe suites would be helpful so you can create PDFs and other resources within the Adobe suite. Depending on the kinds of projects you'll be responsible for creating, it would be helpful if you are somewhat familiar with how to use a camera, both for still photo as well as video, and then be able to edit those things to fit the specific requirements by screen design or other elements that may require you to use either a Photoshop kind of software or other editing softwares. And then for virtual trainings using Zoom, WebEx, Teams, or other similar video conferencing tools. And again, there are other things you might be asked to use based on a particular company's preferences. But if of the whatever these are, yeah, 8 or 9 things listed here, if you're already familiar with 6 or 7 of them, you are in very good stead, and the others will be reasonably easy for you to pick up because you're not having to relearn or start from scratch, but it's just a matter of enhancing what you're already comfortable and familiar with. Now you might want to know, but okay, how is this going to be any different than what I currently do? And what I would counsel you there is nice to know information is taboo. Less is always going to be more. Just give people the essentials. They don't need a lot of background. They don't need a whole lot of nice to know. They just need to know what they need to know. And so that doesn't mean you don't explain how their particular step in a process impacts the entire process, but that's as far as you go. You don't tell them how to do all the other steps unless it's relevant to their job. Only tell them how it fits and don't go into greater detail on everyone else's role. You'll have to become familiar with adult learning styles, a little different than how we ordinarily, traditionally, think of how children learn. And I know that that's a constantly evolving and morphing topic, but adults tend to want to access information based on what they already know. They prefer to have things provided to them as analogies. This is like that, or the reverse. You know how to do this. This is the opposite. This is that in reverse, or things that start with their understanding and either builds upon it or gives them at least the context text on which to understand and access this new information. They are not going to appreciate being treated as if they are that so-called tabula rasa, where they have no knowledge and the trainer is expected to fill their heads with knowledge. These are adults who expect to be treated as if they are capable, competent professionals. Now, when we come to adult behaviors, we love to think that they can follow instructions. We love to believe that they won't exhibit some of the negative behaviors that you see in elementary school or other school environments. They're exactly the same. You're going to have those that talk. You're going to have those that show up late. You're going to have those with excuses for why they didn't get their homework done, and on and on and on. But you have to recognize that they are adults and you have to talk to them as if they are adults. That doesn't mean you don't hold them accountable, but you just have to recognize that they're not 6 years old or 10 years old. So, again, not a skill that's beyond your ability. You just have to have that uppermost in your mind. And companies are going to want to know if they're spending money against something, are they getting a return? They want the results to be clear. And the more you can talk about how you will evaluate the training and how you're going to ensure or take the steps to ensure that the training does provide some kind of benefit, the safer you'll be. So if you are coming out of an environment as you are, where testing is a constant, that's going to remain. Only now, instead of it being a score that's important, it's going to be, is the sale made in two less sales calls? Did we reduce the rate of accidents by a certain percentage? Did we reduce costs? Did we increase profits? Those will be the things, and related things like that, that are now going to be measured and determined if, in fact, it was a successful engagement or not. And management will be your friend if you're providing that kind of performance back to them. They can also be your foe because they don't always understand the world of learning, education, training, performance improvement. So they may have fairly rigid ideas that you'll have to be able to demonstrate through your expertise are either on track or may be a hindrance to achieving the goals that they have desired. So keep that in mind, and you will have that opportunity to sit across the table and explain yourselves and explain why your suggestion is of a higher value than perhaps one that they have initially approached you with, as long as you do it in a business way that addresses the objectives, the strategies of that business. So, Mike Holcomb, who is a trainer extraordinaire now, works for one of the leading consulting firms that addresses the needs of the consumer packaged goods industry. He had this to say, where I cut through the clutter of the consulting industry and I provide meaningful and practical guidance, not a whole lot of fluff. We want to get you to where you need to go. So I'm going to give you the T. You have what it takes. You know how to do the things that will be required of you at a really high level, but you're just not sure, how do I get there? What's the pathway? So if you come this far in this webinar, you have a reason for being here. It's clear that you have what it takes. You have something to offer. I believe that you seek to make a change in this world where you wouldn't have gotten into teaching to begin with. And now you have an ability to do that in a different environment and have a really great impact on the future of the organization that you'll be working for. So you have skills, expertise, education, experience, knowledge, all those things that the world needs. And I believe that you have the innate desire to share what you have as a gift and provide it to others so that they can succeed. And your passion will carry you through many of the initial speed bumps because this is something that you are burning to do. You want to provide that expertise. You want to see others succeed and achieve, and you want to help yourself and your family reach all that they can. So, what is it that I'd like to be able to offer to you? I'd like to offer you a course, Basics of Instructional Design, 9 self-paced videos. They include the following 9 steps, what it takes to be an instructional designer. We have an overview, and then we go into each of the more specific tactics of being an instructional designer. That's 500. Ordinarily, that's what that would cost. I'll also provide you, though, a reference guide so that you have material to help you through this. That would be roughly 250, and it includes all the things that you see there, templates. So it's not just learning and now you try to figure out how to make this work, but I give you the templates. I provide you with the techniques that have worked successfully with others. I'll give you as a bonus, because you're on this webinar, a bonus, you'll have access to the peer-to-peer community, the Facebook group community that allows you to bring your questions, to share your concerns, to have discussions around opportunities with not only myself, but others looking to make this kind of transition to training and instructional design. Another bonus I'm willing to give you by virtue of you being on this webinar, either live or in the recording, in addition to the course, in addition to the reference guide, in addition to access to the Facebook group, I'll also open up the podcast series that I've created where I interview various other experts and have them provide between 20 minutes to a half hour in an interview format their specific area of expertise, and I'll make that available to you. I have 2 podcasts that I currently am hosting. You'll have access to both. One is from Learning to Earning, which is very focused on trying to develop the skills from teaching into business. The other is for those that wish to freelance or wish to provide training or instructional design kinds of services in their own business. I also have a catapult rather to a career in coaching or consulting, and you get access to both of these podcasts. If I were to add all these up, it would be 1,200 worth of value. But because you're on this particular webinar, I'm going to include additional bonuses for you. I'll also offer you one-to-one mentorship where I'm not going to pass you off to a more junior associate who's just learning the business. You will talk with me and you'll be able to review your content as you design and develop it. You'll be able to ask your questions. You'll be able to receive the kind of accountability that keeps you moving forward. And I'll be offering feedback. And if it's as simple as, hey, I need help constructing a resume, we'll work on that together. If it's, hey, I want to have a portfolio and I need someone to review the e-learning module I just created, we'll do that as well. So I'll give you 3 of those one-on-one meetings of approximately 20 minutes apiece. And if it runs over, I'm not keeping a stopwatch on it, just to give you a sense of what most of these meetings tend to last. At this point, your total value would be 1950. But because again, I want this to succeed for you, I'm willing to offer additional bonuses. I'll also offer you email access with my commitment to you no more than a 24-hour time frame before I will respond. And very often I respond within the hour. A question comes up, it's in between those one-on-one meetings that we have scheduled. I will respond to your questions via email. That does not count against your 3 one-on-one meetings. So I want to be your lifeline as you make this transition. I want to help you get to that place where you are the corporate trainer or the instructional designer. So if you're ready, send me an email. I am not even putting up a link for this because I only want the first 20 people to get this. It's only available for the first 20 people. You also get lifetime access. You have a money back guarantee, assuming that you do the work. I'll give you 60 days to choose if this is right for you or not. As you see in the corner of the screen, 60 days, you can determine, you know what, it's not working for me. I want my money back. This would be 2,200 ordinarily, but I'm willing to offer it to you for being on this webinar or viewing this recording for 249. 249, almost a 10% of what the original cost would be. So clearly well worth it. But as I said, this offer is only good for the first 20 people because I want to give you that personalized attention. And so if I just provided you with a link to sign up, then I might get too many people and I will have to then uh, shorten the amount of commitment I make. And I don't want to do that. For the first 20 people, you can have my personalized attention simply by sending me an email and saying you're in, that you want this program. Now, you'll get tailored, personalized attention. This is not a cookie cutter approach where everybody gets the same uh, exposure, same content. It's about meeting your needs as an individual learner. And that's what I'm here to provide. It's focused on how you wish to proceed, not what I wish to give or offer, but how you wish to move forward. And we're going to leverage what you already do really well and build upon that. So if you're hesitating, think to yourself, if I just hold off, let me think about it, where will you be in 6 months? Most likely, you'll still be pondering, wondering, thinking about this, and it will have now just been 6 months longer when you still haven't taken the opportunity to move forward. We're currently halfway through the semester, the school year, and if you're looking to make this transition, perhaps over the summer, this is the ideal time for you to build that skill set so that you can hit the ground running and not have to worry about next year being in exactly the same place that you're in right now. So what does this mean for you? It means you have to take the first step. And just like Nike says, just do it, I echo that. You have to just take that first step. And as soon as you do, you'll find that the second step becomes easier and the third step after that. And so you do have options. I acknowledge that. I recognize that. You could continue to do this alone. You'll spend an inordinate amount of time thinking about it, researching it, guessing, trial and error. You'll reach out to people, some of whom may have succeeded, many of whom are posing as experts and are really not. You'll post in Facebook groups, you'll talk to your pals on Instagram and LinkedIn, and then you'll pay an awful lot of money to people who don't really get what a teacher does and don't really understand how to parlay that into what a trainer does and how a company would respond to those certain skills. And you'll just have time elapse and it won't go forward for you, unfortunately. So, Sir Isaac Newton, for those of you that are science teachers or at least familiar with Isaac Newton, let's take motion over emotion. Get in motion and you'll find that it will become easier. Take that opportunity to succeed. So, hey, folks, this could be you. You could be the one that says, this is what I needed. This is the kickstart so that I can, if you'd like, start your freelance business. Or if you prefer to work internally, I'll help you do that as well. And of course, you're still going to say, but what about, however, I know some of you can't commit to a scheduled meeting or you can't clear your calendar for a very specific time and date. Okay, I'll work with you. We'll make it fit your schedule. Again, this is designed to help you. It's not where I have a single approach, a single product, and that's what everyone receives. That would not be a good training intervention, and I'm not going to try to do that. And if you find that it's not for you, as I said, money back guarantee. If you do the work, if you're committed to the process and it, for whatever reason, doesn't meet your needs, you get your money back. And no questions asked. Just have to come to this with full heart that this is something you're going to commit to. If you do that and it doesn't work, I don't want to have a dissatisfied person. I will provide full refund. And if the cost up front at 249 is too much, think about all the things that you do spend on already. All and isn't your future worth 249? But even so, if we need to do a payment installment plan, I'll work with you on that as well. I want this to fit. I want this to suit your needs. So the truth is, fence sitting is painful. How much longer can you afford to be without? How many more times do you have to have that feeling in the gut of your stomach when you have to go into a school where you don't feel appreciated, where you feel as if you're not recognized as the contributor you are fully capable of being, and in fact are already providing to them. So again, only for the first 20 people will I make this offer. Send me an email. Tell me that you want to be in on this, and then we will work together to make this work for you. I want to give you a path to success, but I need you to commit to this, and together we will identify the path that works for you. We'll come up with what those essential skill sets or needs or requirements are, and then we will flourish, sustain, and grow so that you can go essentially from what might feel like the outhouse now to a penthouse. And we'll get you there together, collaboratively, cooperatively. So I have every confidence you can and will succeed. If you're currently a good teacher, you'll be an amazing trainer or instructional designer. It just means we've got to keep you focused on the right path so that you do succeed. So as I begin to conclude this, one of my greatest success stories is from a gentleman named Jeff Clow, who is now an entrepreneur himself, where he teaches other people, he trains other people on how to take photographs of wildlife. He takes people on tours of uh, Africa and different landscapes in Western United States, Canada. And he takes people on trips and he explains to them how to maximize the right environment, the right camera, the right angles, so that he trains people exactly on getting the best photographs they can. So again, if you're ready, let's do this. Send me an email. Tell me that you're in, and you get all those things. A tremendous savings for you. Ordinarily, this is 2,200. I'm offering it to you for 249. I hope that you feel this is well worth it, and I am so excited to be able to help you bridge that gap into instructional design and corporate training. I thank you for your time and your attention to this webinar, and I so look forward to having the opportunity to work with you. Thanks again, and this will now conclude this webinar.